Fully loaded, there's up to 118 tons of fuel in each wing. With a conventional fuel system, that weight would put huge stress on them.
Just a quick one. I picked this book up by Haynes. They make the manuals for all your car maintenance, so these guys know what they're doing. Here we go. I got it from this bookstore here, The Works, £6. I think it was £6 well spent, as we shall find out. There's a girl lining the tanks with Kevlar liners, so the wings. So she must be the size of a rabbit. I'll explain why. 95,000 kilograms of fuel in all of these tanks. Right, I did my usual production skills here. Right, I did save some. Right, so here we have a nice view of some people on the ground, but look at the skinny, tiny little wings. They are tiny. So, and we'll go on here. They're showing you there's various places where all the tanks are supposed to go in, but there's all these struts supporting the wing to give it strength, because obviously when you're flying supersonic, these wings are going to be subject to some immense strength, you know, forces and whatnot. But then also you've got to put room for the actual beautiful engines themselves underneath here. And anyway, here's the fuel gauges, kilograms per hour. That's how you could measure airflow, yeah. Okay, another gauge here, PSI, that's how you measure pressure of air in your tyres. Here's some more, sorry about this light, it's not great. Here's showing you the tiny, thin, look how thin those wings are, yeah? And there's the engine, you can crawl inside that bit, but that bit you're not going to crawl inside there. And what I'm saying to you, that picture was faked. Okay, there you are. Absolutely. There's, you know, these are steps designed for human to walk up, not a giant. And the steps have you can lock them up. They're a certain size so you don't trip. And then look at the tiny little wings. There's no liquid fuel gone into any of this, is what I'm getting at. Anyway, I may have done this before. You can find this on Google or other search engines. Gas turbine engine. The gas turbine is an internal combustion engine that uses air as the working fluid. The engine extracts chemical energy from the fuel and converts its mechanical energy using the gaseous energy. So the chemical energy is the gaseous energy, or the working fluid, which is the air. Down here, a large mass of air must be supplied to the turbine in order to produce the necessary power. The mass of air is supplied by the compressor, which draws the air into the engine and squeezes it to provide high pressure air to the turbine. Now, I'm just going to read this next bit, because this is the crux of it to me. Right, if the compressor and turbine were 100% efficient, the compressor would supply the air needed by the turbine. At the same time, the turbine would supply the necessary power to drive the compressor. In this case, a perpetual motion would exist. That's where it should end, because they have invented a perpetual motion free energy generator. And I just want to end it there, because then the rest of the book and the rest of I've got another book as well, that was a similar sort of price, showing you, I mean, they're absolutely fabulous, amazing pieces of engineering, But unfortunately, you get people like that don't want you to know because they're very highly paid, and it was an elitist thing to become a pilot. There was jokes, Jeff in the RAF and Tally-Ho boys and all that in the day, because the elite, I mean, they were showing you these ridiculous things, but it's the engine itself is the marvel, and you don't, the weight of these things, the whole thing, it's a lie. The whole industry are lying to you because they've invented a free energy generator and hidden it in plain sight.
For jet engines to go. And this is from the brilliant work of Anthony Haywood, showing how jet wings do not carry jet fuel. The information is overwhelming. Look at how thin those walls are carrying those big jet engines. But the piezoelectronics here is what we're going to get into about how these plane wings do not hold fuel. Yes, there is used a little bit of fuel on the plane, and we'll get into that, to spark the compressors that are generated from the piezoelectronics jet engines, Pratt and Whitney. They'll show you how it's done. But as you can see here, they don't hold 40,000 gallons of fuel. Think of a tender tanker that comes in and fills up the gas stations where you go. That's at maximum maybe 4,000, 5,000 pounds. And you're telling them 8 of them are on these wings? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And here's just more documentation from the brilliant Anthony Haywood work. But take a look at this.
Just connect to it. But look, let me look at this. The A30 uses Jet A and Jet A fuel, so I'm not making this up. This is liquid fuel they're trying to tell you goes in these wings. Complete refuel can take 45 minutes with a pressure of some 45 psi. It's just nonsense. There's not a chance on this earth at putting liquid fuel in it, and you know, we know this by now. I've done enough videos, you know, and there, look at them. It's an engineering masterpiece. The fuel system, let's read what it says here. Widely accepted that an aircraft's fuel system has more profound effect on its performance than any other system. This one has 11 separate tanks, 21 pumps, 43 valves, one of the most advanced in the world. The size and scale of the A30, Here we go. Owing to the fact that it's fully loaded, there is some 118 tons of fuel being carried in each wing. And are you reading that? Am I in the twilight zone? Here we go. Yeah? And the air can carry 320 litres of fuel, or about 250 metric tons.
250 metric tons.
So here's where we're told that fuel is stored in the wings and also in the tail, and in some aircraft it's stored in the center weight as well. The weight of the fuel counteracts the motion, so what they're saying here is that because it's in the wings, it makes the plane more stable. That doesn't make any sense when you think of the center of the plane being more stable when the weight is centered, not on the expansions at the externals, plus the wings moving up and down and the heat and cold, as we'll get into in a second. But when you look at it even curiously, to look at wings as we'll be showing, they're made of struts and framework here, and the bulkheads. And what we're going to get into a little bit is showing you the inside of these wings, but you'll very rarely, if ever, see a picture of a wing from a real wing looking from the inside. I couldn't find any pictures at all from a real plane from the inside. I googled fuel bladders to look at what fuel tanks would look like from the inside, and there's no pictures, folks. There's some pictures of some walls, some metal aluminum walls. Now remember, wings are made of aluminum, okay? And it takes, what do they say, 89,000 pounds for an Air 380 airliner bus airplane. 89,000 pounds. And that would take the size, this is a picture of one tanker having 9,000 gallons of fuel or water carrying it. 9,000 gallons. Look at how big that is, folks. Look at how large it is. It's saying they hold 10 of these in their wings. Are you kidding me? So someone brilliantly put together this little thing and said, we're going to take the weight of a Camaro, which is an average around 3,400 pounds or so, and we're going to divide it into 89,000 to get the metric tons equal to the 250 metric tons to find out how many cars are needed. And it's going to be 83 Camaros on each wing. So you're going to have these all stacked up in weight. You can see how heavy the wings would be if there was 89,000 gallons or 250 metric tons hanging out on these wings. The other is the temperature. Here they say they burns kerosene, right? So the planes are flying at minus 69 degrees, and then you ramp it up to 500 miles an hour, and the air is much colder then. Well, how cold is it that it needs to ignite kerosene? And you're going to see here it takes over 400 degrees to ignite kerosene. And here's a military aircraft. These are 9,000 gallon bladders. It would take, what did we say, 10 of these in the wings of these bladders? Are you kidding me? You're going to tell me there's 10 of these bladders in every wings of an Air 380 Airbus flying around? And you'll see a little later, these wings aren't that wide. It could not possibly accommodate that much fuel. It's impossible. And then we got the shifting of the fuel as well as it flies.
Anyway, I think this picture speaks for itself. Obviously, copyright of whoever that people are there, Elm, May, Stock, whatever. But if we zoom in here, you can clearly see holes going into where apparently the fuel tanks are. And on the bigger planes, they're not those stupid bags that they claim that they are. You know, the ones that you drink out of where your wine's kept. So all these holes for all the hydraulic systems that lift up all these flaps, there is no liquid fuel in these wings. I did catch another picture here. Again, if you sit near the wing, you can see all this happening normally when you're coming into land and whatnot. And there's just another photograph here. But all this hydraulics, and you can see the runway there between the flaps. And so there's no, obviously, and there's another one here. And this is the final one here, copyright of that guy at the bottom there. And there's the website airliners.net, which seems to have some really good pictures. But it's just me just saying, here you go. No liquid fuel in any of these wings. Never has been, never will be. These jet engines work by compressing the air and burning it.
This was a comment on the site here from Juan Flores. I'm a mechanical aircraft engineer from the Mexican Air Force. I'm in charge of the F-5 Tiger jet fleet. I will tell you the secret. The air is 73% of nitrogen. The compressor breaks the molecular force of oxygen and nitrogen of the air. And then as the nitrogen becomes the fuel for the combustion chamber, a free energy machine hidden to humanity, the fuel is only necessary to start up the compressor at high revolutions. Once in high revolutions, the fuel is the air that burns the nitrogen at high compressor, at high elevations. Once in higher revolutions, the fuel is the air that burns nitrogen at high temperature inside the combustion chamber started by the fuel at the beginning. At the beginning. So how do jet engines start their engines? All right, so how do they get them started? You can read there's many different ways, but the primary way here, folks, it says start carts are at every major airport. Air start unit. The so-called start cart is wheeled airport utility that can be carted to an aircraft. It provides high pressure air to the engine. Oh, stop it. To the engine to start it. Let's read that again. It provides high pressure air to the engine to start it. This helps save the battery from wear due to repeated use at every major airport. Got it? So how does the engine work? We're going to get the video here in a sec. But here again, just to prove it, the sucking sound, and it's like a hose nozzle, a garden hose where it narrows and creates more pressure. It's all about the pressure. Here you see in most modern jet engines, the fan alone can generate up to 90% of the thrust, 90% of the power, the pushing power of the engine. To find out where the other 10% comes, we must continue to follow the air on its journey. So it gets squeezed. Just like starting bigger, going smaller, they're squeezing it down and using the piezoelectronic blades that create actually energy from their vibrations. When they start vibrating, they increase in intensity, and that's the piezoelectronics that makes the energy being created and more power behind it. So we are leaving pre-jet engine technology behind. And once the fan sucks in the air, some of it's not just forced around the engine, but is funneled to what's known as the compressor. Inside the air compressor is pushed along by many spinning discs loaded with small blades along a tube that gets smaller and smaller. This quickly squeezes the air, making it much more dense, hotter, and more explosive when the fuel is finally added. Get it? 90% is all done by the compressors and the blades. Fuel is added to the compressed air, creating a highly volatile mix requiring a simple spark to burn. This is what happens in the combustion chamber. Up here, the combustion chamber, where they do add fuel. Yes, there is fuel added, but not in the amounts they're saying. The way out of the jet engine is at the end of another tube full of spinning discs bristling with blades that are spun by the force of the expanding gas. This part is known as the turbine. Once at the end of the turbine, the gases leave the engine, exerting a force on the engine in the opposite direction. This is why people say they smell gas coming out of the engines. The ingenious part of the modern engine is that the intake fan, compressor, combustion chamber, and turbine are linked by a single shaft running along the inside of the engine. So when the expanding gases spin the turbine at the back, it helps spin the fan at the front, which keeps the process going and generates more thrust, creating perpetual energy. Very, almost perpetual energy.
A big fan at the front of the engine pulls air around the engine and sucks air into the core. We'll come back to that outside air in a moment. For now, let's follow the air in the core. It goes into a compressor, something like many household fans joined together. Each fan gets smaller and smaller as the blades squeeze the air into a tighter and tighter space, compressing the air like you would squeeze a balloon, until that squeezed air is mixed with jet fuel, a kind of super gasoline. In the combustor, that air and fuel mixture meets a flame and shoots out the back of the engine. The rush of hot air spins a turbine. The turbine is like a windmill that scoops up energy from the heated air and spins the shaft connected to the fan at the front of the engine. The excess hot air from the combustor blows out the back of the engine, producing thrust. Remember that air rushing outside the engine core? Together, the turbine and fan push a larger mass of air than the core ever can for much more thrust. But that extra air passing around the engine core works more efficiently if it moves more slowly than the hot air rushing out the combustor and the back of the engine. One of the first engine makers, Pratt & Whitney, recently designed a new jet engine that lets the fan push air more slowly than the turbine by putting an amazing gear between them. Pratt & Whitney calls this the pure power engine because it uses less fuel and makes more thrust at the same time. Less fuel saves money.
Take this generic turbofan engine, like the one that powers the ERJ. It sucks air through the intake, and then it sends the air through a fan, compressing it. In the ERJ, the fan is a single stage, one row of blades. Then, most of the air goes around the engine. This is called bypass air. We use this for most of the engine's thrust and for cooling.
This is Craig's job, firing chemicals into the clouds in a controversial attempt to modify the weather. According to the World Meteorological Organization, 52 countries have a weather modification program. Insurance companies like ones in Alberta fund cloud seeding projects in order to lessen damage claims they receive.
To do that, pilots target clouds full of moisture and eject small amounts of an inert chemical.
Kylie Jenner, here, that's the same person. Believe it or not, that is the same person. Unhypnotize yourself, if you would please, and realize that this is the very same person, the same haircut, the same style, it's all there. What's the difference? NASA was working round the clock on this Photoshop on the left.